Yeah, I wanted to do a little video about spirituality and how you can just obsess about it too much and go too far, and it can be a problem. And I've gone as far as I can with it myself, and too far. In fact, I've spent too much time and energy on it. It's kind of addictive and problematic. Just a draining waste of time. And I'm surprised other people just give and give and give to it. I mean, I have given a lot to it, and here I am just sick to death of it all. But, this conversation that I was having in Discord kind of sums up a bunch of that. This is a server. Why don't I open this bigger? This is a server called The Somewhat Conscious. This is about spirituality and philosophy and just hanging out. And this is me. I actually had a different image, an icon, when this conversation was happening. I changed it afterwards. Anyway, I asked this guy. We kind of became friends a little bit on this server. He's cool, he's chilled. But anyway, this other guys like, I need help defining the word pantheism, and then I'm like, yeah, I explain it because I have all this knowledge that I've acquired. I explain the pantheism is world and God literally in Greek, and like so basically this helpful map graph is correct and it does help explain basically the differences in these views. And then these people are talking about pantheism, and I'm like, I'm tired of thinking about God. Whatever beliefs you have just do not matter. We think they matter because our egos look for meaning and attachment, but whatever. That sounds kind of negative and tired. It's authentic though. And they're like, yeah, sure, nothing matters, but the point of life is to talk about it and pointless shit for the hell of it. And I said, I don't mean to argue, I just feel old. These questions sound exciting when you're in your early 20s, now just shrug, but hey, all the power to you. Also, I add this. That biologists tell you the point of life is to survive and be alive. How do we do that? Well, by working together, by being kind, peaceful, and mindful, and yeah, by finding meaning and keeping ourselves busy. So yeah, sure, do pointless shit for the hell of it. And I do think that's definitely the point of life, and I think that that's very true. And anyway, this guy starts talking about the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and I'm like, WTF, I'm so tired of random spiritual groups or esoteric associations. Often they're cults. I'm like, what the fuck is the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn? I don't want to hear about them. Anyway, the more you experience and understand, the more isolated and lonely you feel. If you're Muslim or Christian, you can just talk to other Muslims and Christians as they're everywhere. But if you're into pantheism, occult beliefs, or mysticism and the like, who the fuck are you going to turn to except some niche corners of the internet? And that I agreed with. I think that's actually really true. So what he ended up saying, I was like, yeah, yeah. Anyway, this guy's like, oh, I don't feel isolated and lonely. Did during my dark night of the soul. Solitude and introspection are very much, but isolation and loneliness aren't necessary. Yeah, of course. And this is kind of the crux of what I just went through. I just spent 10 days in isolation in a spiritual context, and it was too much, and it led to a nervous breakdown. One thing I got out of it was that I should probably abandon all this about spirituality. I mean, I can't totally abandon everything about spirituality, but I just need to think about it less. Spirituality is a series of tools and resources to help you just live your life. It helps you just be engaged with the present moment and be compassionate and mindful and peaceful. Helps you have meaning and structure also to some extent. But spirituality can look like anything basically. So it's so vague and nebulous. And yeah, I definitely overdid it. I did start having a nervous breakdown. This was earlier this month. Oh, this conversation was August 22nd. Now it is August 27th. 5 days. Anyway, yesterday YouTube recommended a video about non-dualism, and like, shrug. We become full of delusions, and the more we stay lost in our own heads, the further detached from reality we become. Spirituality needs to be embodied, heart, mind, and body, in a way that is engaged with the world. Otherwise, it doesn't end up doing as much good as we'd like. And that is so true. This guy seems to ignore me. Dark Night of the Soul. This guy said he is on a bad LSD trip a year ago. Fucked him up irreparably and sent down a path I would have thought ludicrous beforehand. That sounds kind of concerning. I don't see myself as some enlightened being gazing upon the foolish plebeians. It's interesting. I think that becomes relevant later in this conversation. I'm going to get back to that because there's a tendency for that among spiritual people, unfortunately. There's a lot of narcissism in spiritual communities. It's more that I just feel lonely. I want someone in real life who understands what I've experienced. And I say the more we stay lost in our own heads, what just happened? Oh, I clicked on it by accident, and it set me up. Own has a further detached from reality become. Exactly, man. I'm so far down the rabbit hole and abuse psychedelics a lot. I stopped caring about reality or staying grounded long ago. I used to think I was a mindful realist who'd never lose track of what is real or what isn't, but now I'm likely delusional as hell and have no idea. I'm sure I've lost my mind already, and I'm so deep that I have no clue. There comes a point when you get so tired from resisting that you just give yourself to the madness, even if it destroys you mentally. But I have to admit, it's left me a state it's left me in a state of limbo. I understand why some will yearn to be cautious about delving into such things. Sorry, some will warn you to be cautious. You think it's a joke or an dramatization at first, but it isn't. You only realize when it is too late, though. So this guy pursued psychology. What am I doing? He pursued psychedelics and really went deep in the rabbit hole of spirituality, and it messed with him. And I'm sure he was using psychedelics in pursuit of spirituality and non-dualism and awakening. Watch out about all that stuff. I say thank you for sharing. Sounds isolating, but hopefully life-giving. I have been close to losing my grip on reality a few times myself. Not to that extent, but yes. I mean, I don't want to sound crazy. That's the problem. There's always this fear of sounding crazy or like you're losing your mind. I'm not losing my mind. There were a couple of times in the past where I was having, a nervous breakdown. Started. A nervous breakdown is not losing your grip on reality, though. Sounds like going too far down the path of spiritual awakening can often break you, and super spiritual people often say that's the point, and it's only after that you have awakened, but I do remain cautious. For me, the deeper I go, the more in love with reality and existence I become. Okay, that sounds healthy. The more it unravels, the less sense it makes, the less rigid and prison-like it becomes. Yeah, well, you're breaking your dogmatic worldview. You're kind of becoming more gentle and gray, and your view of the world, like seeing a lot more nuance, and that's healthy. If you're at the stage where you're still trying to maintain a grip, then it probably won't be long for you if you keep going down this path or experimenting with psychs. You reach a point where you no longer give a shit about holding a grip and just lose yourself in the infinite complexity and insanity of it all. So, do I want to do that? Do I want to lose my mind by going down the path of spirituality? No. Absolutely, it can be freeing and eye-opening, beautiful, but to be honest, if I understand things... Oh, I was talking about this guy, Nausea, how he's not as far down as the path, and this guy's gone down the path where it's problematic, where he started unraveling mentally. And I say, in my opinion, it's mostly true that people either eventually pick a place to land or they go that far and detach from reality, and then what? And then this guy says, my dark night of the soul was a nightmare. Why would you want that? Now I'm more in love with existence than ever. You have to go through the scary part of detachment and wield it like an instrument. Yeah, I kind of had that, like 6 years ago-ish. 4 years ago, maybe. Not to this point of insanity, but, like, you do start kind of detaching from your sense that everything makes sense in a very coherent, logical way, and you are one person, you like with like one identity, like doing one thing. How do I explain this in a way that doesn't make me sound crazy? Like, I never started dissociating, but there were pieces there where I saw, that so much of life are these attachments that we have that are illusional. Like, we hold on to things that we think really matter that don't matter. We hold on to identity pieces that we think are true, but they're nebulous and shifting and they disappear. And who you are when you look into the depth is kind of just a bunch of emptiness. There is no single unitary sense of self. This is Buddhism, basically, and I saw that it was true. You look deep enough, you get to this point where, like, it all kind of seems like a series of social constructs and, personal constructs in your mind. And you can see past all that and kind of pursue this state of awakening. I was trying to do that, but you can pursue it too far, and you need to be grounded in reality. There's only so much, like, there's only so far you can really pursue spirituality and reality. Like, it becomes a problem if you pursue it too far, like this guy. This guy went nuts. He literally says that in this conversation. He says, I think some people can handle going this deep, but I struggle for sure. Well, does sound like he struggles, and I'm not sure how many people actually can handle going this deep. A lot of people think they can handle spiritual depth and dive into it further than they're able. Like myself with this basically 10 days of isolation in a spiritual retreat context. It wasn't totally 10 days of isolation, but it mostly was. Why would I do that to myself? It was too much. We all think that, like, oh, maybe we're special or we're better, we understand this stuff better, we can handle it better. That's not true. Typically, it's not true. There's a lot of delusions and there's a lot of egotism in spirituality. And the whole realm of spirituality is filled with delusions. And that's the problem. It attracts people with ego issues. It attracts people with insecurities who want to transcend themselves. And those dreams can create problems. And that's one of the big issues with the whole realm of spirituality. You want to go deeper, so you do, then you realize you went too far, but you've gone too far that it's impossible for you to go back to how you once were. You see everything differently, you can become incredibly cynical, detached, or apathetic to all things, including yourself. Isn't that interesting? The idea of enlightenment is that you become so deeply awakened that you become one with everything. And if you do that, then you basically have no attachment to yourself any longer. If you have no attachment to your own ego because you've released it entirely to the point of actually literally reaching nirvana, then you will be apathetic to yourself and you will be detached. I don't know about cynical, but it's interesting that he says this. If you go far enough down the path of spirituality, become detached and apathetic. Well, you certainly can. But even like the idea of enlightenment and spiritual awakening, nirvana, and whatever you want to call that stuff, ego death, that is about detachment. And you do become apathetic to yourself. You're just sitting there restfully mindful, at one with everything. And it's kind of fundamentally useless to the world around you anyway. But, it's not as healthy as people pretend, and that's even if you start getting there. Like, this is someone who has gone pretty far down this path in pursuit of spiritual awakening, and he says it's impossible for you to go back. Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I never went as far as he did, so I guess once you do go that far, I guess it is impossible. I did really pursue spiritual awakening and transcendence in different ways in the past, and I went as far as I could. I never went as far as losing my mind, but there were moments of transcendence, moments where I felt like I did understand the truth of the universe and everything, and I could kind of just be at peace with myself and everything and feel at one. I had some tastes of that while at Taizé 6 years ago, and that's why I liked Taizé so much, and that's why I wanted to go back always. And now I think that fundamental idea, you get tastes of it, but then it's an illusion that you kind of just end up chasing forever through more and more concerning paths, like extensive psychedelics, which clearly, if you see this guy's story, you don't want to do. Anyway, he says, so it's best to use people like me as a cautionary tale to not stray too far unless you're absolutely certain you can handle it. And I certainly agree with that. Most people think, oh yeah, I can handle this. And then it turns out that they probably can't. And the people who can, they have a lot of training and practice through a structured religious structured religious organization or I mean, like a community. They have community around them, and they have structures and guidance around them, checks and balances, guardrails, things that make sure they don't go off the deep end of losing their mind. Because you can lose your mind in this pursuit of spirituality, for sure. Maybe reach the point through meditation instead of psyches like I did. I'm not even sure you can reach it through meditation. Like, it's so difficult and so unlikely. It's just such a nebulous, far off, fantastical dream. Pretty much nobody arrives at awakening, and they're never actually fully an awakening. There is no arrival. There's always arriving. There is no state of transcendence that you're always like that you're just gonna reach and be like totally at one with everything and it'll last. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. You have glimpses of transcendence, but then you go back to regular life. Oh, I think we talk about this further in this conversation that I had. What? I don't know what he's talking about. Why does this guy? He has a tendency to bring back old conversations that, like, the conversation you clearly moved past. Anyway. Oh, but he does answer my question. Planning a visit for a few months, maybe longer. This guy, it could be this year sometime. This guy's a Pakistani American. Oh, this guy comes back. I was crying for a month straight after my night law, worst experience I ever had. Well, that's why you shouldn't do drugs, kids. I've never done psyches. It was a slow burn for me. Ah, oh, man, I forgot that this got muddled with this other conversation. Oh my god. That's right. This is so annoying. This is the problem with spirituality. You get ego problems, delusions. I believe I created everything, not of ego though. Sorry if it sounds ego. If you say I, then it is ego. 100%. If you identify yourself with God, that is egotism. That is delusion. If it's truly an experience of non-dualism where you've actually reached enlightenment, then there is no I. Then there is no I. If you're telling people that I have achieved transcendence, sorry, but automatically you have not. Automatically, people need to count you as someone who is wrong and foolish. As soon as someone says, I have reached transcendence and I am one with God, ignore them because someone who has done that, they will not use the word I. They will not. They will not. And it really bothers me just how much egotism there is throughout this whole realm of spirituality and mysticism and ego death. Like, there's so much bullshit and there's so much narcissism. Oh my god. This actually really embodies a lot of what's been frustrating me. Me and the universe are alike. We are similar. More similar. I believe I created everything. Not out of ego, though. Sorry if it sounds ego. Well, you can associate yourself with God, but I'd be very cautious. And any real sense of association with God would be more like I was saying, where it's not about you, pal. We all have God in us. It doesn't mean you are God. So you worship yourself too? Me too. That's concerning. What's that? Yes, I worship myself. What? Yes, but there's another I that transcends you. See that guy? See, this is why I like this guy, Deus Sive Natura. He's more grounded in reality. And then, in fact, there was another conversation in the server earlier, not even long ago, where the two of us were agreeing that the point of spirituality is just to be mindful and like, you can't do anything further than that. There's no real transcendence that you can like totally achieve and last in. And it's just a bunch of delusions or insanity. And I wonder how many of these people are crazy. Like, I mean, like, all of this interest in spirituality, a very non-spiritual, very analytical and logical person would think all of this is kind of crazy. Like, I'm more open-minded than that, but I think there's still a bunch of craziness that is there often in these kinds of conversations. I think this is ridiculous. So, I am God, he says. Oh, I love that, this guy says. Okay, whatever. Oh yeah, this guy actually does know stuff. He does accurately describe what solipsism is. That everything exists only in their minds. And then this guy says, me threesies. So you have three people saying there, God. Three people have supposedly reached nirvana and have become one with everything and have removed their ego. What are the chances? I've never heard of three people who have actually found enlightenment and transcended their egos and had ego death and become one with everything, actually meeting each other and just vibing like this. And whoa, on a random Discord server. What are the chances? That's amazing. This must be a very, very unique and special occasion. Like probably like not even 1 in a billion people ever actually properly transcends their ego and reaches the state of nirvana where you're one with everything and have no consciousness of yourself at all, which is actually what that means. To have three in one conversation, Statistically, just absolutely absurd. But yet these are like, oh yeah, wow, I'm one with everything. I am God. Foolishness, foolishness. This guy shows skepticism, but he hides it. A god can feel another emotion as well. I'd be cautious. Why that? I don't understand the use of that. Anyway, sounds like he doesn't want to feel those. If you ask God, name it as I am. So if you ask who God is, I am. You get it? That doesn't mean it's you though, pal. Oh my god. Get this man a true. Okay, another crappy meme. Sure, if that works for you, by all means. See, this guy's cautious. I guess I don't understand the despondency then. Ha! Ha! That is a good point. This guy was showing earlier that he's feeling despondent and discouraged. If you were truly at one with everything and truly released your ego so that you could become one with God and essentially become God, then you would have no more feelings about yourself. You would be detached from your sense of self. You would be detached from any negative feelings. Like the Buddha and other people who apparently transcended themselves and reached nirvana, they didn't have emotions left. In fact, it's disturbingly non-self. Like actually, like Nirvana is kind of a there's kind of something inhuman about it and soulless because you just like fundamentally remove your soul. You like I mean in a figurative sense, not a literal soul, but like you're like who you are just ceases to exist. And that's not actually an attractive thing. It's like that Beavis and Butthead YouTube video. Well, the YouTube video was a clip from the show. They're like Beavis and Butthead go to heaven for some reason. They're like entered Nirvana. Buddha, Krishna, and Jesus are all there. They're like, welcome. And they say, here you can you lose all attachment to your desires. And Beavis and Butthead are like, why would we want to do that? Haha. And like, actually, why would you? There's like a weird kind of desire to die to yourself that seems to exist in a lot of religious circles. It exists a lot in Christianity. I've seen that. And, you know, just like, I don't know if that's particularly healthy. And, you know, these people, they're gloating. They're like kind of boasting about how they've transcended themselves, which is, you know, kind of shows a contradiction here also, where there's this desire to cease to be you, but also to show that you've ceased to be you, and therefore show people how spiritual you are, which is definitely what these people are doing. Look how spiritual I am. Although, I mean, granted, I do that too. I try to be spiritual. I try to show people I'm very spiritual because it's important to me. It's a part of my identity. And there's just so much egotism. It's delusion. I'm cautious about egotism, I say. It's understandable that your immediate impression of I'm with God is egotism, but it's more deep and layered than that. And this is where there's a miscommunication about the language we're using. And we'll get to that. Yeah, I get it, I say. Non-dualism. All is one. God in us and we are God. God is us and we are God. God, it's a mystery. People call me egoist and most of the time, but I have this ego because I know my worth. That's kind of, sounds like egotism. And if most people are calling you egotistical, you probably are. And it doesn't sound like you're full of the like actual divine light of the universe, because the divine light of the universe doesn't give a fucking shit about your ego, and it won't be promoting you. It'll just be promoting itself through you. You would be a vessel of the divine, being like, I am one with everything. Oh my god, these kind of people. Like, why do I even bother with these spiritual Discord servers? This is actually, I end up saying I'm at the end of the conversation that I think I need to quit. I am recording all of this. Yeah. So, I'm not someone with low self-esteem. Well, a healthy self-esteem, you're just balanced. You're not thinking much about yourself. Someone who thinks about themselves has an ego. This is my point. I think about others too. I don't mean ego in terms of pride and narcissism. I mean in terms of self-consciousness. Maybe it's not the best term. I use it almost in a Jungian sense. Like Carl Jung, like the idea that you're inside your psyche, you have three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. And the ego is like your executive functioning that is aware of yourself and it makes choices on your behalf and kind of keeps who you are together, and is a thinking machine, embodying, you know, like all these different elements of who you present yourself to be in the world. And that's very much similar to the Buddhist sense. Wouldn't a god be beyond the need to feel emotions and self-sufficient? I love this. That's why I like this guy. Yes. Yes. I know it's just a word and people think of it in different terms. I don't know exactly what you mean. Well, he's open-minded. He knows how to continue engaging people in conversation, whereas I have the tendency to kind of shut down stupid ideas, which is a problem. I'm not, well, I mean, it's not, it's a strength and a weakness. Yeah, I'm afraid of ego as well, huh? We use language like I and me because language itself is restrictive and exists within the ego. Language itself is restrictive and exists within the ego. What? So language doesn't exist outside of your consciousness of yourself? Language language moves between people. Once you speak something, it can be transmitted into the minds of someone else and they can interpret it however you like. So language does by definition exist in the world. This sounds kind of like bullshit. I think it's less about need and more about play. What we experience is what God experiences. It's all a game. There's no stakes to anything for it. Well, that does sound like wisdom, but I don't know. Just that one sentence. For me, I want to lead people to the right path. Like the truth is, I felt a call to fill prophecies. Oh my god, that's a red flag. You're not gonna fill prophecies. What are you talking about? Sure, we are all gods in a sense. I get it. I want to be a shepherd. That's egotism. This is egotism. I want to be a guru. Oh my god, everybody wants to be a guru. Egotism. Well, that means there are levels of being a god. The locus of control and influence matters. Oh, gotta go for now. Bye. On that end, I say, I think the Buddhists use a word that means that beneath our sense of self there is a divine nothingness, but like the self-consciousness is separate from that. If we can actually go beyond our self-consciousness completely, then we can associate ourselves with God, ... that's nirvana. And then I say, I wonder if I should quit the server. But anyway, that, like literally, talking about ego death and all this non-dualism, like, yeah, this is Buddhism, this is like, okay, this is divine nothingness. You need to go to beyond your self-consciousness completely to get there. And clearly this guy has not done that. Anyway, I say I'm going to quit the server. This guy's like, why is that? I don't even know who these two are. This is the first time I remember talking to these two in this server. Or the other guy, for that matter. People come and go in the server a lot. Why is that? Ego death. Yeah, oh yeah, this guy's responding to what term I mean in Buddhism. Actually, I'm not sure that this guy knows as much as he's pretending to know about Buddhism. Buddhists use words like Shakyamuni, Dharma, Metta, Sutta. What a... I mean, if it's an actual Buddhist word, it would probably be in Pali or Sanskrit, maybe, but probably Pali, or maybe you'd have some Japanese Zen denomination that use their own terms. What is the word they use in Zen? Kenoshi, Kenshi, for like transcendence. I don't remember. But ego death sounds like a Western translation of a Buddhist concept. It doesn't sound like a Buddhist word in itself. It just sounds like literally that's a compound between two English words. Anyway, though, I guess that does capture the gist of what I'm trying to get at in Buddhist philosophy. Yeah, I think they figured out that the key to discovering and understanding God isn't entirely about learning and exposure, but deduction. If you trace back every thought and feeling to its root and see where it goes, you'll automatically find the answer you're looking for. Reverse engineering reality, in a sense. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Too much thought about spirituality. Oh yeah, I was answering the question about why. For me, at the moment, it feels unhelpful and exhausting. Keep in mind, I just spent a lot of money going to Plum Village and to spend 10 days mostly in silence in some contemplative Christian context, so I'm tired. But I mean, isn't this service whole gig about spirituality? I'm like, yeah, that's why I want to leave it. Like, that's understandable. Do whatever needs to be done for your own health. Yeah. Bam. And then this guy's like, you can, yeah. You don't have to leave entirely. Dave says, Siva Natura comes back. Life is as it is, not as we think or conceptualize or try to make sense of. Spirituality is everything and nothing in particular. This is so true. This is so true. We don't need to call ourselves spiritual or act spiritual. That is absolutely 100% true, and I recognize this, and I know it's true. And in fact, I made that comment even while I was on retreat at Plum Village. We really are or are not at the same time. No need to complicate or fixate on the minutiae. We can keep our minds light and supple. See, this guy really gets it, actually. And he's the reason why I've actually stuck around generally and with engagement in this community. I can write books about it and not say a single word. That guy gets it. Oh, someone new? I say this is exactly what I've found to be true. Even as far as spirituality goes, it's always at its best when it's just about living life. Look at Transcendence and Julian in Norwich. I mean, she's not the best example. The Transcendence is, if you really understand what she's about. But there's lots of more grounded, ordinary people who really get it. It's just about living life. That's what all the great spiritual teachers tell you. All this stuff about pursuing transcendence is kind of a distraction, except for the very, very, very few who are very committed. And even then, you should only do it in a particular context, like Plum Village or in a Christian monastery, if they support it and think that's right for you. Anyway, it's just humble, ordinary daily life. That's exactly what spirituality is. It's like the old Zen masters said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. That right there is so true. Like, you might experience a moment of transcendence or enlightenment, like I think I did when I was in Taizé 6 years ago. Life goes on. And you're still yourself. You never escape being yourself. You never really properly escape your ego. You never properly transcend. There is no awakening. There is no arrival. There's always just a process that you are in. 100%. Like, you are not the exception. It is highly, 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 highly unlikely that you are the exception. In fact, at Plum Village, I met Buddhist monks. And they were just normal people living as Buddhist monks. In fact, I met Justin Welby, head of the Anglican Church of Canada, when I was at the community of St. Anselm in London. Normal guy, very charismatic and intelligent, very committed to Christianity, very devout in his practices, but still a normal guy. I've met other devout Christians of all kinds, normal people, monks and nuns. Yeah, there is, like, in practical reality, I have never met someone who has transcended their ego. You just meet quack jobs on the internet. This guy was just talking about how he went insane. The other guy sounds delusional. What's his name? Technoblina Kamana. People are calling him egotistical, and he's, look, I'm not egotistical, I am God. The other guy just sounds young and inexperienced. He also kind of disappeared. Nausea. Anyway, I say the truest and healthiest spirituality always knows that it doesn't have to show that it's real for it to be real. It's just people living their little lives. That's the truth right there. It's hard for people to accept it, but it's the truth. This guy says, yes, I concur. When you can relax, you can be at peace. And then the conversation ends there. Oh, that's like 3 hours later. No wonder people kind of get tired of spiritual people. And that's it, really. I think too much about spirituality. It's obsessive. It's not going anywhere. All I can do is utilize spiritual resources to help me just live life in a peaceful and compassionate, mindful way. Spirituality is a series of tools and guidelines for doing that. I like the idea of embodied practice. Plum Village talks about embodied Buddhism. And I think it's important that it's embodied. Mind, heart, body, all together, and practice. And in a practice that is engaged with those around you in whatever context, because you never properly escape people either. Well, rarely. That's typically not healthy if you do. But, just being mindful, being thoughtful, and just living your little life. And there is nothing special beyond that. It's really hard for people to accept this. It's really hard for people to accept this, that it's just your humble, ordinary daily life. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The truth in healthy spirituality always knows that it doesn't have to show that it's real for it to be real. It's just people living their little lives. Like the movie Perfect Days. Anyway, that's all. That's all I have to say. I'm done. Nothing more to say here. That's basically as far as you can go with spirituality. Just live your little life. Don't push it too far. Just find somewhere to settle in your thoughts and who you are and what you believe, and just live your life. Otherwise, you just go around in circles forever and ever thinking about these things, or you drive yourself crazy. You start losing your actual mind. And that's kind of embarrassing at that point. I mean, who cares what other people think, I guess, but it's kind of shameful. And it's kind of a betrayal of who you are. Well, that's a complicated thought. If you're truly going to pursue ego death, then you kind of, you're like, what, trying to kill yourself? Trying to kill who you are as a fundamental person with integrity and authenticity to who you are? Like, real ego death actually doesn't sound as appealing as a lot of these people talk about. And like, I pursued it. Like, I mean, I pursued transcendence and spirituality. It's only so far you can go with it. Like, I went to Plum Village, it was good. Then I went to a couple of Christian contexts that people, I was like, oh, I can try to do this in a Christian context once again. And how many times have I tried that? It doesn't work, it doesn't work. Oh my god. I tried it too many times and it's embarrassing. There's nothing there. You can try what you can to pursue enlightenment and transcendence, and you just get nowhere with it. You can try to become a spiritual companion to others, but it doesn't make sense. All I can do is help reduce the suffering and angst in the world around you. Just live your little life. Your quiet little life. Nothing special, nothing big, just happiness here and now. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say. I'm done. Bye.